The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, TechBytes is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Well, here we are with another edition of TechBytes, and I'm really thrilled once again to have a member of our IT community, David Roberts, who's the CIO of Cicis. And David, welcome to TechBytes.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Great to be here.
So I learned a couple things in the last few minutes because we were having Old Home Week. So first of all, it sounds like this might be your first podcast.
It is.
Okay, well, then you don't know what to expect, so we can have a conversation on anything, and we'll try to make it easy, right? But also, you and I sort of go way back, and and you've been in a lot of different areas of the industry, and I thought maybe you could share with us, your IT journey, or it doesn't even have to be IT, your journey in the industry.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been in the industry in IT dating back to about 1997. Started out in the financial industry in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then transitioned to Dallas right before the year 2000. Had an opportunity to get into the restaurant space with TGI Fridays as a software developer. Spent many years there, 16 and a half years there, doing many different things. Learned a lot from the people that, back then, TGI Fridays was very, very big. We had a lot of talent within our IT department, which was why I went there. A lot of learning went on. That's kind of what molded me, for my future career was the people, and the things that I was able to do from a technology standpoint. So it was very valuable for me before, I headed down the leadership path, and it's been a fun journey. Arriving here at CC 6 years ago, and how things have changed here just so much. I never would have thought that, especially going through the things that we've gone through, whether, COVID, for CC's, we went through bankruptcy and an ownership change. A lot of things have changed, and a lot of
Fridays is having those same challenges right now.
They are, and that's unfortunate, but they'll make it. They still got some great people there running that show over there.
So, it occurs to me, so the CEOs at Fridays, when you were there, who were your CEOs?
I forget.
Was it Dick Rivera? Was he one of the CEOs at the time?
No, because when I was there, it was Carlson Companies that owned them before Sentinel Capital and those guys.
So it might be Wally Doolin.
Wally was my first CEO, correct.
Yeah, I've known Wally forever, and I knew the guys at the Carlson Companies. I forget about that they at one point owned Fridays because I used to talk to them all the time. So,
and then Jolly went to Best Buy as their CEO. I forget, but
right,
he was there as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they clearly they have. As I think about the people that I know who are at Fridays who have been in the CEO position over the years, they've had some real rock stars, out there who have done a lot of things in the industry. And I can think of two of them, the ones that I just mentioned that were actually, if I remember, chairs of the National Restaurant Association, or, they were certainly on the board doing some great things, and they're still out there in it. So there's a lot of alumni, from that. Were you in a global role at the time?
No, it was more, domestic. We spent a little bit of time towards the end of my career. We were spending a little bit more time with our European locations, but it was mainly domestic.
So, you've seen the full service market, and you're now in pizza.
Yep.
I talk to people about pizza. I'm curious about your impression on this, but whenever I talk about pizza and I talk about technology, I talk about it being, it's one of the harder industries and one of the harder applications to do, which is why the big three, developed their own applications originally. And obviously, pizza and delivery business was one of the things. But I think what made it complex was you have a pie and you can split that pie up and you can do different things on different parts of the pie. And so that was like not the normal thing because you'd never do that on a meal that you order. You might have modifiers, but you're not doing that in it. Do you think that pizza is like one of the harder types of technologies to work with?
After being in all the different spaces, pizza is definitely the hardest. uh, when we were rolling out our new point of sale, we spent a lot of time in design. That was one of our biggest focuses because if you don't get that right, the experience is not good.
And you've got the complexity. It's also the leader in delivery, and online ordering and voice ordering, before everything else, which actually made pizza was probably more prepared for COVID than everybody else was because this was, it's bread and butter, so to speak, of the of that industry. But what do you think is the most complex? I mean, I gave you my thought, but maybe there's something I'm not thinking about. What's the most complex part of technology used in the pizza business?
Well, I will tell you that COVID wasn't necessarily set up successfully for us because we're a pizza buffet business with takeout. So we had a few extra challenges in front of us to pivot quickly to focus on takeout when COVID hit. So just as a note, that was probably one of the things that emboldened us and got us really back on track was a stronger hyper focus on our product and
What
operation.
what percentage of the business is takeout versus eat in?
Across the brand, it's a little over 80% eat in and
Okay.
less than 20% takeout.
So I stand corrected. The model's different. I completely forgot that because I have been to CC's before. We actually had one. I don't know if it's still there, but there was a CC's in Rockville, Maryland.
Yes,
And okay, so I used to go there, and I completely forgot. So now I'm going to correct myself completely because pizza is one of those really tough things to do. But anybody who runs a buffet, that actually is very tough to do as well because of portion control, portion size,
yeah,
holding times, and a lot. But usually I have that conversation with people on the non traditional on site segment. But you actually have put two of the tough parts together because of that particular piece.
yes. You definitely have. I mean, it is a totally different experience when you're working for your takeout business versus our buffet business and what goes on. Like you just said, food costs is a big thing in the buffet business. Efficiencies are a huge thing for us. We like to say, for CC's, we're in such a niche market because there's really nobody like us. And so, as our president says, we're the best pizza value anywhere because you can come in, you can get everything all you can eat for $8.99, and you're in and out. But from the time you walk in to the time you're done is a different experience for everybody, right?
Wait, did you say the Rockville store is still there?
I believe so. It's in Maryland, right?
Okay. Well, so don't tell my wife, but I'm actually now thinking about
Stop by there.
maybe that's where I'm going today, right?
There you
So,
go.
because I haven't been in a while, but I do remember that. But in reality, what you have is it is complex, as your boss would say and your CEO would say in there. But in reality, maybe you take the best of the people who are in the buffet business. You got the Golden Corrals and people like that in there, and then you've got the pizza business. So you've really got two. So the question is, does that mean that you end up creating your own software to bridge the gap, or is off the shelf a reality for you?
So, like I said, so it was we had to make sure we had the right partner from a point of sale perspective to design what we needed, right? From the takeout to the buffet
Right.
and all that entailed. It's it's definitely unique. There's some crossover. You're still able to the pillars are still there, right? You've got labor scheduling, labor management, you've got inventory, you've got
Of course.
all of those different pieces, and that doesn't change just because you're a pizza business.
Production management might change a little bit, though.
It does, and that's where you have to build in different processes and efficiencies, to handle things maybe a little bit different way.
So, if we take a look at that, um, did let me make sure that I got this right. Did you actually answer the question as to you said you had to have the right tech partner, right? But did that imply that you were able to take off the shelf technology, but the tech partner was able to tweak it for you to use? Or did you have to have the right tech partner to develop technology that just really was not available?
We had to pick the right tech partner in this case.
Okay. So, but we're using off the shelf.
Yes.
Okay. But you're able to. So, by the way, that goes right to the thing about, you probably can find what you want somewhere. You may have to tweak it a little bit, but you don't always have to develop yourself unless you've got 30,000 restaurants or something like that. And okay, maybe you can afford to do it, right?
Yeah, I would
So,
say real quick. I would say that there's advantages to both. Not to interrupt you, but there's advantages to both because, and I truly believe that because I think there's opportunities if you were to build your own, but I think there that takes a level of investment of time, money, and talent that not a lot of people have. Say, like you just said, unless you have 30,000 restaurants or you're really committed to it, to a brand like say a CC's.
well, you've got an interesting customer base as well because you get families, you get individuals. So you also have to be able to work towards that customer base. So how does your tech stack, you know, impact your ability to utilize new tech or to be able to provide technology options given a very diverse base?
So I'm glad you asked that. So once we completed our rollout of our new point of sale and back office at the end or at the first of last year, our focus totally turned towards our customer, right? From customer feedback, guest feedback, to the bigger nut of, all right, loyalty. What does loyalty look like for CC's? Because before we rolled this last POS out, we had actually stopped our loyalty program. It was not being effective for us. I'm not going to say who our partner was, but it was not.
Yeah.
It was just not effective for us. And so we put it to the side, put the mobile app to the side for 2 years, and focused on let's get our system right, and then let's work on how we can get that guest back in here, and give them that great experience, right? And so that's where we're at today. Is we've got a great partner that we're finishing up our loyalty development over the next 3 months. Going to be rolling that out towards the end of this year, and then working on other programs, as a result of the customer data that we're going to be focused on.
So loyalty is now your big focus.
Yes,
Okay, so that's the initiative for 2025.
one of them.
So, okay, one of them. Are you able to share your other big initiatives?
Well, along those lines, we're also, you know, I think we talked about a little bit about it, but we've done so many things to upgrade our tech stack across the board, not even just the restaurant, but corporately. We're also a distribution company, so we've also upgraded. We've replaced our ERP system, so we've done a lot of things in the on the ground baseline infrastructure to allow us to take on new initiatives.
You do mean distribution within your set. You're not distributing outside to
We do
other.
have outside. We do have a couple outside customers as
Oh
well.
wow. Okay. Well, that in itself, I suppose, means logistics
Yes.
in here and central commissary
Yep.
and shipment. Okay. So I get it. Those are adding to the complexity
Yeah.
of the different parts and pieces.
So saying all that is the other component that's closely related to loyalty is we are overhauling our data strategy now. Now that we have everything in place, we want to make sure we have a strong central data strategy, and that we're, now that we're positioned to be able to use latest technology, things that, and integrations with all of our partners, all of those things, we feel like we're positioned. I feel like we're
Right.
very well positioned to take that on now.
So if I have a conversation with you at FS Tech in the fall or something like that, or we do this a year from now,
Yep.
you guys are going to be, because of the infrastructure and the base that you've built, you're going to be forward thinking and a leader in technology in the industry because you built that base to move forward.
Quite honestly, Rob, I feel like we are right now.
Well, that's great. So let's do this. Let's take a break for a minute,
Okay.
and then let's go ahead and come on the second half, and really drill down in this, not necessarily the technologies that you're using directly, because we won't necessarily put you on the spot of that. Although, please quote me that he just said that he's going to a year from now be the leader in the industry in here. But I think we should talk about what's going on in the industry in general, because you certainly have a lot of experience in that.
That's great.
Great. So we'll come back in just a couple moments and we'll continue on this conversation with David Roberts, the CIO of Cicis.
With the rapid expansion of technology in the food and beverage industries, finding the right supplier can become overwhelming and complicated. To simplify this process, the IFBTA created Exchange. Exchange is a powerful search tool where users can easily narrow down their technology search and refine results by application type, geography served, department, and more. Browse resources and learn more about the industry's technology suppliers at exchange.ifbta.org. Now, back to the show.
So welcome back. And I'm very pleased to have on TechBytes today. And we're in the middle of a conversation, which I'm learning, by the way, is like a really challenging conversation, because not challenging because of the guest and who we're talking to, but challenging because of the technology and the complexity that David Roberts, who's the CIO of Cicis, is dealing with. And what I got out of it, by the way, was, let's see, I got out of it pizza, I got out of it buffet, I put on top of that distribution in there, okay, and then packaged product, but tailored for what you need, bringing it all together.
Yep.
And then on top of it, really setting a platform for being able to do loyalty. Did we miss something?
I think that covered it.
Okay. So you have this platform.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you bring all this together, or how do you see the industry bringing it together? I hate talking about AI, but I'm going to put AI out there, not because I want to really talk about AI, but perhaps the use of the tool when you have an environment like yours, or you came from the Fridays environment. I mean, any of the environments, where do you see that fitting in, and where should it work for people in the food service industry, and where maybe is it not going to?
So what I would say, Rob, is it should serve a purpose. It should solve a need. There is a lot. So there is a lot of colleagues out there struggling with that, and there's a lot of initiatives that, to me, I don't know that solves their core needs. It's not my place to say, but for us, AI, the purpose of AI is to enhance the technology that we have to create the better guest experience, to help us drive more sales, help us cut more costs. And if we're doing that, then I'm doing my job.
But so we have customers, and then of course you have your leadership and your stakeholders, and then you have your management. And my guess is that the use of the AI is not necessarily on the customer side. It'll be frictionless, and they won't actually know it's there. It's just something behind the scenes driving what you're doing in decision making, or is it actually in front of the guest?
So in front of the guests, they may notice it, they may not. So we're doing AI ordering. We're testing that. So, which has some benefits, but again, are we solving a need? Because when you get into AI ordering, you deal with all those things of how do we evaluate whether it's successful for us, whether it's cost effective for us. Do we have enough high cost call volume? All of those different things, right? And then does the experience get better? Are we able to do add-ons? All upsells, different things like that. And so that's what we're testing right now. But there's some offshoots of it too when you get into some of those AI models where we just found out from our franchise advisory council last week, talking to them about it. They're like, what have you done? This sounds like a real solution to get rid of spam callers, and which floods a restaurant sometimes.
Wait.
Well,
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. What's that about?
So
spam callers.
Yeah, spam callers. So you get called all the time on your cell phone, spam day and night. Well, restaurants do too. But if they're calling into AI ordering, they're calling into a switch and a tree. Well, you can't get to the person. You can't get to the store unless you're going through the tree call to get there. Because you're going through an AI ordering system. So I was just creating another opportunity that we didn't know we were solving for, right?
To be able to recognize that it's not a real person you're talking to.
Yep.
All those text messages that just show up, how are you?
Right.
Do you want to play tennis this afternoon? I get those all the time.
Yep.
And of course, half of them are probably being generated by AI or by bots.
And we're getting more and more every day, right? The other thing,
so I guess, well, hang on a second. So let's try the other side of that. So we've had some people on who've talked about, voice AI. And I went to a Google conference yesterday in New York, and they were talking about what they're doing at the drive-thru with Wendy's. And a lot of people are doing voice, kiosk, drive-thru. So the AI is going to catch up to where it's going to generate a voice and maybe be able to respond to the question it's being asked. So how would we get around that?
How would we get around AI being able to handle that?
Well, I'm trying to think about, so you brought up something really interesting I never thought about, right? Okay, so we're using AI that should be able to recognize that it's a spam caller.
Yep.
It's not a real person, right? But what happens, I've heard the story where AI was used to imitate the voice of an executive and then say they need to do a wire transfer. You probably heard that. It happened last year, right? So if AI goes that route and now you actually have a voice on it that can imitate the person and stuff, I'm just trying to think of how AI is going to catch that or trick them into maybe asking a question or asking them to do something that AI is not able to do.
Where my head went was, and you mentioned this, and it's going to get a little off of the AI road, but one thing that's really prevalent in the restaurant industry is fraud, right? And phone fraud with your
gift cards
members. Yes, or gift cards, but not only that, calling in and saying you're corporate and I need you to ring this up on your POS, and do this refund or whatever the case may be. And it happens, it's happened with every restaurant company I've been with. And, I see how AI could play a role in that, to hit even more. But the way I look at it is, all right, I go back to what are we solving for? And then if there's an issue, then we've got to create a solution for the issue. So if AI, let's just say in this scenario, if you had a bot built and it was very successful at calling restaurants and using certain information to get refunds, well, how do you stop that? Well, you don't necessarily stop that, but how do you put controls in on the restaurant side to help the team member, right?
To get them to recognize that it's going on.
And even if they can't recognize it, how to help them help themselves. Right. So in other words, put controls on your systems to prevent, mass refunds, let's say. Right. So you work with your payment processor and say, hey, we're going to put a refund threshold in our stores because 90% of our refunds happen within $50. All right. So now the franchisee doesn't come into a store the next day and find out, or looking at his credit card statement, that there was a $2,000 refund that an employee that he just hired didn't know any better not to do it.
Yeah, so I could see how it would stop that kind of transaction or at least highlight it, but also you're able to, because you can capture all this transaction data, you'd be able to use AI to analyze the transactions themselves to see what kind, not only for the positive things that you already talked about, which is looking at trends and packaging and what are people buying, got that, today parts, customer types, but also the trends that might lead up to the fraud of if these things start coming together or this process starts going that way, of being able to identify it in advance, just like cameras, security cameras, can identify certain things because it sees movement or something like that going on.
And trends of, there is in restaurant fraud. Unfortunately, we all experience it with, you hope that all team members are good team members, but that's just not always the case.
Well, all right. So I think we get the AI piece, and we've talked about a number of different technologies. But you're out there, you talk to a lot of your peers, and you see what's going on in the industry. Is there something that? And I just came from the National Retail Federation show, which is a huge technology conference for retail guys, which is starting to cross over into food service. Are there some trends or some things that are going to be the keywords, the buzzwords? AI was the buzzword last year. Okay. So what's going to be the buzzword this year in technology that, we're going to be pushed to do?
I just hear, with every technology, I hear a lot about automation, and AI plays a big role in that. But, in my other circles outside of the restaurant industry, and I try to maintain a lot of, interest in those different verticals, because a lot of those things that people are doing outside, you know, don't apply to restaurants, but are very, are beneficial to look into. So, for example, automation. How do you? Everybody has accounting practices. So, how do you automate those solutions, right? And what technology do you need in your in house to be able to support those automation? So, automation is a big thing right now, in a lot of different spaces, because it streamlines, and creates a lot of more efficiencies. So, just for an example, uh, we just completed an RPA process that layers on top of our ERP system for accounting practices to process, all of our invoicing now as a
Right.
distribution company, right? And we have 120 franchisees. You get a lot of invoices, not only from them, but from our vendors that we buy product from too. And how do we handle that? And how can we be efficient instead of having, 10 accountants processing invoices all day? Why don't we play smarter,
Be
not
able to.
harder, right?
Right.
So
Well,
automation, just as an example, looking at streamlining and automating processes is, and it's also a knockoff of what AI is, working on doing as well. But those are some of the things that, I've having a lot of conversations about, as well as, on the data side of things, is, how is analytics getting more refined each and every day?
so one of the things that's interesting about the pizza business is that, and it just occurred to me at NRF, the center of the plate, as they call it, was the Pizza Bot by Middleby.
Okay.
And they put that Pizza Bot in a Walmart in with Bricks Holdings in Texas, in Frisco. And
Sharif.
so, where are you? Where do you see robotics, the automated kitchen coming into your business? I've seen pizza vending machines now in Hyatt's. You know, uh, when you're talking about automation, is that going to be a big step forward now within your segment of the industry?
For our brand, I don't know how well that fits. Um, you know, it's all about the experience of, especially when you're dining in at the buffet, and, having that experience with the team members. And if the buffet, if you don't have what you have on the buffet, we'll make it for you type thing. And maybe there's a component that you could add for, servicing the tables, but, it's not been a big focus of ours.
I don't think servicing the tables, actually, that seems to be quieting down.
Yeah, I
Even
know.
at National Restaurant Show, you don't see all those robots anymore doing that. It's more in the back of the house, doing like pizza
Prep
making and those kinds of
on the
things,
prep
right?
side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Currently, it's not one of the things we're looking at doing based off of our operational model.
What about drones? Drone
Correct.
delivery of, because pizza is also the example that everybody used there because of the box and you take it and you
Yeah,
deliver. How do you feel about that?
that's an interesting question because the biggest thing about delivering pizza for us is making sure it's fresh, hot, and tastes like you were at the restaurant, right? And drone delivery, I don't, the whole delivery component is a challenge in the pizza industry, right? Because you've got to maintain that quality, right? And utilizing drones may have a use there. I don't. I'm going to have to think on that one a little bit because I just don't know that putting a pizza pie in a box. I'd have to look at the
I liked it more. The only reason it's top of mind is I saw the partnership between Google and I think it was DoorDash, and they were
yeah.
showing that testing in Texas, of the thing dropping the bag down, not a pizza. But on the other hand, you had companies that are no longer really around, like Zune Pizza in the West Coast, where they basically were, robotic made pizzas in a warehouse, put on a truck, 100 or whatever it is, drive out to a location, and that also with driverless vehicles and things like that is also drone, of sorts, the autonomous piece for delivery. So I was just curious as to if you had an opinion in drones in general, by the way, or autonomous vehicles. Forget about pizza.
Yeah,
You know, do you see that future coming soon?
I do. I mean, the autonomous vehicles are everywhere already in the big cities. You see them at first, you're shocked, and then you quickly get used to seeing it, and the more and more you see it, the more you get acclimated to it. And I certainly think that that's going to become a bigger proponent. Especially on the delivery side of the restaurant business,
Hmm.
absolutely, there's an opportunity there.
Well, you've seen a lot of different things, and it's interesting because if we were having this conversation 5, 6 years ago, we would be having a conversation about the role of the CIO and tech strategy, and that they report to finance and they don't have a seat at the table, and you know, we'd have those things. How have you How have you seen the business challenges change, or the role of the CIO change over the last few years, and its involvement both at the table as well as the overall, strategies, for a company?
I think I have a couple of thoughts on that. So one, we've become. It's been critical for us to become educators, right? Let's talk about just in the cybersecurity space. It's so much. It's so important to educate your bosses, your boards on what that looks like, the importance of it. There's plenty of examples out there. So, and the other thing is to partner with them when events happen, right? It's not if, but when and how you recover.
Do they take it seriously?
Well, I think they take it seriously when there's enough colleagues out there that have been hit, and that's happened, right? And so that's we all have human nature as part of this, and so we're more of, when we hear that a close friend was hit, that affects us more than we hear that the business down the street was hit, right? Because we're invested in that friend, and then we want to really understand so that it doesn't happen to us, right? And so that's where the relationship matters, right? So the partnership matters because making sure that, like I said, if it's not if, but when and how you recover, and the steps you take. When you take those steps, make sure you're arm in arm with that with the leadership, the executive leadership team, as well as the board, and making sure that you're learning as much as you can through these challenging processes because there is a lot to learn but there's a lot of experience to be gained and shared in those, which creates a trust, which
But it's not
creates.
going to create a situation where there was a saying many years ago. You may remember this. They used to say that the chief information officer was the office of no, right?
Right.
And today, I can imagine that conversation with cybersecurity, and you're talking about these things. But I think there's probably more respect on it because the amount of e-commerce and your data being stored in the cloud, even if you're doing 80% of your business in a dining room. So uh, I think they probably do get it. But I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of the more underestimated or under talked about areas.
It's been a very big piece to our build, our rebuild, or our resurgence, is a focus. Everything's security first, but we want to make sure it's not a hindrance to success, but it's got to be a part of success, right? Because if it's not, then I'm not doing my job, and if I'm not, and that's kind of the steps I take in every project, every opportunity or initiative.
Well, listen, it's been great having the conversation with you. It's been great knowing that a year from now, since you're doing your job, you're going to be the leader in technology in the industry, built on a very strong platform within CC's. And I'm going to look forward to talking with you again. You do have a challenging job in a challenging industry, but it's got to be a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Listen, Rob, I really appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to sharing all the challenges and the things we've overcome in a year from now.
Well, listen, I really can't stay on much longer because my guess is that CC's probably opens up in Rockville. It'll take me about 20 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
So that would put us right about lunchtime there.
There you go.
And again, we're not telling my wife about this. We're just gonna go
Right.
out there and I'll be your mystery shopper. So
ask for forgiveness, not permission, right?
Well, listen, thank you very much for joining me, and it's been a pleasure today having a conversation with David Roberts, the CIO of Cicis Pizza, and thank you for joining us on TechBytes.
Thank you very much.
This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of TechBytes, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.